Hello everybody, welcome to Hidden Harvest with Liz. Today we are going to be recording my very first full episode for this channel. For those of you who are migrating over from my gaming channel, hi, welcome. Enjoy this long-winded, very comprehensive look at my garden, my yard, and our, I guess you could say renovations. Basically we're tearing the whole thing down and rebuilding it almost, but I'll get to that when we get to it. Today's video is going to be about talking about the yard, all of the projects that we had going for this last year, the differences between this year and what I plan on doing for next year, and it's probably going to be an exhaustive journey around the entire yard. So I do apologize, but in order for me to do like this is what it looks like this year and how it looks at the end of next year, I kind of want to go ahead and get this recorded before full winter sets in, because it's so nice outside right now. And even though we've got car sounds, it's not too bad right now. For those of you who were there for the regular part of this past year, most of my garden has been right here. The garden for next year is going to be moved to a different section, and I'll show you whenever we reach that section where it's going to be moved to and why. But first thing we're going to start is down here in what will eventually be a small orchard. I'm trying to figure out the best way to introduce this, and I guess the best way to introduce it is to just go ahead and introduce it in video number 1. The main point in my garden is not necessarily to do a big, huge harvest, though that will be part of it as well, especially since most of my harvest will be hidden. A hidden harvest, because should you get into a bad situation, should things in the economy get worse, should the bad absolutely happen, people's vegetable gardens will likely be ransacked, as will mine, possibly, because I'm pretty close to a city right now. So the whole point is even after someone ravages the garden or whatever, there's going to be food here that other people will not recognize because they're not normal from this area, and they wouldn't know how to prepare it anyway. So, part of that is going to be this orchard, which is relatively small right now. We have a fig tree, we have 2 elderberry bushes that were just planted this year. Let's go take a peek at those. Okay, right here is my first elderberry, and it is kind of looking piddly right now, but I do have 2 elderberry bushes, and they got planted out this year. They're rather small. This one is starting to put out shoots, which means it did take before the frost set in. And my other one is still alive, though I'm not sure because it's not putting out shoots. But the elderberry is a very good immunity building plant. So the whole purpose in having this plant here is to help build immunity towards colds, flus, things of that nature. Obviously consult your doctor on any of the things that I say help with immunity. Take under advisement that most of those things have specific uses, and you might have a case where those particular things may not help. The point being is I wanted to make sure that an elderberry and a few other things are planted out, some of which I don't even have in the garden for this year, but it will be coming up in the next garden, which I can't wait for. The next thing that we have is a fig tree. Let's go over there. Alright, right here we've got our fig tree. I can't actually see the camera right now. Anyway, we've got a fig tree, and I have rooted out a few more for next year. We'll see how that turns out. Other plants for this space are going to be, it's going to be an orchard, but it's going to be like a small orchard, and preferably full of plants that people won't readily recognize. I've got 2 on my list, which is a pawpaw. Even though it's indigenous to our area, it's not necessarily well known because it's not sold in the grocery stores. It doesn't ship very well. And then plums, but of course it depends on what kind of plum you're getting as to whether or not that's easily recognized. Not to mention plums just make a really, really good jelly. The next part we're going to check out is the old garden, which will be disassembled for next year. Alright, and this section that's right behind me is what I consider the old bed now. This area will probably be disassembled and will become part of the orchard. I have got 7 beds, 8th bed is inside the house. These beds I'm going to take apart and use for something else that I think are going to be really interesting projects later on, but more on that later. What I need to do right now is allow for my winter crops to come through right now. Things are producing. For the first time ever, I've got tons and tons of carrots coming in. We'll see how that goes. I also got some bok choy and some cabbages, some broccolis, all kinds of stuff. I didn't even know that I could grow during the fall time. This is the first year ever doing this, and I'm absolutely amazed, even with the weirdness that is our climate right now. We had our first freezing temperatures on Wednesday and Thursday of this past week, and now we're all the way back up in the 80s. So that is like a huge difference from earlier this week when I was trying to cover all the plants to make sure they could survive to what it is right now. But we're not necessarily going to get back into the really hot right now. So I think most of these plants are probably going to be okay. I don't think anything's going to go to seed. I do have another section for the garden where I was thinking about doing large raised beds, but that's actually going to become part of our real garden, our full garden. This area right here is a bit smaller than what I would want for a garden. I was actually thinking about turning this section right here into like an herb and an experimental garden. Like if I'm running a plant that I haven't seen before, haven't used before, didn't know if it was going to do well inside our climate, this was going to be the bed that I was going to use, but I'm actually going to move that over to a different section since our decisions on some of the buildings on this property have changed. Also, these beds need to be disassembled anyway because I'm going to be making bigger beds over there, which are going to be 8x4s, are the ones that I'm looking at. And these beds right here, they need to be redone anyway because I didn't formula the filler correctly. In our area, we've got very long periods of drought, which means I need to make sure that whatever I put in here is also going to help retain a whole lot of soil. In the beds that are inside this section, I haven't actually put anything in them to help them retain soil, not as much as I did in the two beds that are over there, and they seem to be doing very well. What I didn't do was calculate that the clay that is actually a natural part of our biome holds water very well, and if I'm going to substitute something besides clay, I need to make sure that these new beds also have something to help retain water whenever it finally does rain. So that means like a couple of layers of our actual natural clay are useful. Plus if I can do like vermiculite, or if I can do coconut coir or something like that in there to help it hold on to a lot of soil. Plus I need to do a little bit more to do some mulching around it as well. A lot better mulching, and figure out the best ways to use mulching and the best mulch for my area, because I've tried a couple of things and so far grass clippings seem to work very well, except of course you get the occasional weed seed that's inside the plants. But it seems to be holding up better than the leaves. The leaves I didn't mulch down enough. Also, I'm going to have to move my compost bin from this section of the yard, to over there near our, I guess you could say, greenhouse. It's kind of a high tunnel-ish sort of thing, but we're going to get over there in just a second. This particular section, like I said, is going to be disassembled, and all of this soil that I've put over here will be moved over to the brand new beds. But before we move over there to those beds, there's a couple of things that I did learn from this garden specifically. One, I have got an aggressive, what is it called? Root rot nematode that was after my tomatoes inside this garden. I don't know whether or not I'll have the same issue over there, but as most of this area is untreated, I will probably go ahead and try to find ways of treating for it so that my tomatoes will produce better. Secondly, like I said, the drainage situation, I need to make sure instead of having extra draining soil that I accommodate for it getting dry and actually find ways of making sure my soil holds the moisture longer. Thirdly, I found out I need to plant my peppers closer together because of sun scald. Something else that I do know for a fact is I have got some seriously aggressive caterpillars that are in this area, and I think one way of combating that is to bring in more wildlife. That might seem like an unusual thing to do, but if we have a whole lot of caterpillars, what we need are some birds. Of course, we'll have to protect some areas against birds eating the seeds and, you know, picking on the fruit or whatever, but it's all an ecosystem, and I need to bring more of that ecosystem in. Also, what I learned this year is I really need to do a whole lot more composting. I have got a bed right there that is nothing but leaves. And in previous years, I've done all of my raking and mulching with these leaves and put them all over my beds. The issue is, because of the very cool spring that we had this past year, I had a whole lot of issues with extra bugs that normally aren't that much of a problem. The main one being the pill bugs, or what we call roly-polies, eating all of my seedlings. And one of the things that they were doing is they were hiding underneath the leaf layer and eating the plants. So part of what I need to do is compost the leaves a whole lot more, plus the leaves were actually stopping the soil from getting the moisture whenever it did rain. Instead of actually holding the moisture in, it was kind of compacting and holding it away from the soil. So I've decided for next year, I've already raked up an entire bed of leaves for me to use in the spring. And what I have to do is come out here with a pitchfork and turn this thing over to make sure that the mulch breaks down a whole lot more for next year's, hopefully, next year's springtime. Next we're going to go over to the new section where we're doing our planting for this upcoming year. But first, back to a little bit more of the orchard. One of the biggest problems I have with this property right now is we're so close to the road, And I need a buffer between me. That's very, very bright. I need a bigger buffer between me and the road, so what I'm trying to do is put some more plants there. So what I've got going on right here is I've got a couple of goji berries going in, and as far as I know, not very many people in my area know anything about goji berries. So this is one of those perfect plants that even though it looks like it's fruiting, not many people are going to know that it's an edible fruit around here. I got this one specifically for me between my garden and the road, and then I plan on layering a couple of other plants in between and rooting these to get a couple more of those. So, like I said, Hidden Harvest, we're just going to make our own secret garden on this channel. And why? Because right behind me, in this space, is where the new garden is going. Alright, right here I've got two of my tall beds that I've shown on my other channel quite a few times, and I've done some experimental planting with them just to see how these particular beds work, and it's basically the same thing I found for the other garden. We have got way too many droughts that go on. First off, I need to make sure that all of my soil holds on to as much moisture as possible by adding in some moisture retainers, a lot more compost. Also, if we do like some kind of core, maybe even using potting mix instead of raised garden bed mix. I'm not sure. We're going to figure that out as we go, and we might even do an experiment with that as doing like a potting mix top couple of inches layer sort of thing. I'm not really sure which way we're going to do that, but in this particular section we're going to be doing, I think we said 12 beds that are going to be 8x4s. And as it stands right now, this section should hold all 12 beds. It might even hold a few more depending on how we do it. But this is also a convenient location because this area right behind me, right there, is where our chicken house is fixing to be. And right there is where the greenhouse is going to be, which is, it's kind of just a high tunnel. It's a trampoline frame with plastic draped over the top of it. And that's where we're going to put our plants like the ginger and turmeric that need a little bit more custom I was supposed to say custom settings. This is not a video game, Liz. They're going to need a little bit more of a custom environment. Plus, I'm thinking about putting the cherry tomatoes over there to keep them going longer. One of the biggest problems I think everybody has is, like after a while, they become really, really bad moldy. And I kind of want to hold on to the cherry tomatoes a bit longer because that is like the best snack for everybody. I think I'm still going to plant out like the paste tomatoes or sandwich tomatoes out here or something like that because it's going to be very hard to put those indeterminates out there. But just like an indeterminate cherry tomato ought to be pretty good over there, plus a good seed starting area. And all of those areas, which is quite literally in walking distance of where I want to put the new garden. So aside from all of that, our well house, which is right there, has got the perfect plug-in for me to be able to actually, instead of just watering my garden, which is a big part of a problem, because I've got two beds here, but my watering hose that comes from the other house all the way down here only reaches to this bed, so I have to hand water the other side, so they don't get watered quite the same way. But with the well house being so close to these areas, it would be a good space in order for me to set up the drip irrigation, because then I would just be able to come over here and turn it on and maybe feed the chickens or whatever, or bring some plants out while the irrigation is actually going. Instead of me trying to calculate how long to stand at each watering bed and each plant, make sure that every one of them gets the base amount, especially for the hotter areas. Now, let's move on to a couple of other areas that we're working on. Anyway, this right here is the pad where we're going to put the chicken coop. Okay, not sure how much of this you guys are going to be able to see, but we're going to be going from this pad straight down in front of the well house, across this fence line, which you can't actually see the fence line. It's actually like a cement border where we're going to be bringing the porch up to, and we'll be bringing it off of that by about 2 or 3 feet. And bringing it all the way around and connecting back up right here. And that's going to be the chicken area. Right down here, heading towards the other house, is actually going to be our vineyard, I guess you could say. I'm going to be growing some muscadines, or scuppling vines as we call them. And I'm going to be growing some blackberries, some raspberries, and I'm contemplating a few other ones that I haven't ever tried before that I definitely want to try. Also, we're going to be doing blueberries, but they're going to be over there in the orchard. That's another one that I didn't mention earlier. So that's where that's going, and then right next to this, is the greenhouse. So all of these things, because of where we're moving it to, will be in very close proximity. Plus, this building down here, which probably looks like a complete and utter pile of crap, and it kind of sort of is what we're currently renovating and where Bam and I will be moving in at. It's just a smaller house for us to take care of, and we still have the bigger house on the property where all of the children are going to be staying until they decide to up and move, in which case that building too shall get renovated. It will probably get renovated before then. It just depends. But right now, those renovations are the top priority because that one's got a bathroom in it, and the other bathroom needs to be worked on, so this one getting fixed is kind of important, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we do it right. Like, all the siding coming down, not even siding, that's like an aluminum something or another that's like from the 1970s-ish, and it's very, very water damaged right now. So we need to take that down, put actual siding up, and fix most of the flooring in there. There's a few bits that don't have to be fixed, but it's a work in progress. It'll probably be a couple of years before that gets done. And then we've got to go over here to the greenhouse. And right now the only thing I've got going on in the greenhouse are my peppers that I'm overwintering, my cuttings from my fig tree, which I'm not exactly sure how they're doing. I know that they need to be watered, but that's the whole garden needs to be watered, so it's on the to-do list. Anyway, the cuttings and those, and I've got some mint in here drying. That's really the only thing this is being used for. Come springtime, this is going to be the way I can finally get some plants started early spring so I can get them in the ground after the last frost. In previous years, I've always had to plant out after the last frost and never be able to pre-plant things indoors because I have animals inside that like to knock things over or love them to death off of a counter. Roki is giving all of you guys lemons. Stop. And by that I mean I have cats. They really like plants. So, this will be the first year I can actually do something about that. Now we're going to walk over to what we have done so far inside the renovation. Okay, right this second, I am walking away from the greenhouse, down the hill, and right along here. I know it's probably very, very hard to tell depth and stuff, but this is actually a bit of a hill, and this is where the vineyard is going to go. And hold on, if I can do this without wobbling so much, hang on. And right over here is where the chicken coop is going to go. So we're going to come down this little stairwell, which is actually where the back porch will eventually be. This is going to get moved over. Obviously, all of this garbage is going to disappear, and this is where the back porch is going to go. I do apologize. I'm pausing, and there's probably going to be a lot of random cuts in here because I have traffic going down the highway. Hopefully at some point there will be a little bit of an audio buffer with plants and stuff between us and the highway, and a privacy fence, but that comes with time. Now, we're actually at the house right now. There is no wall on the other side of this thing. It's actually been torn out. There's holes and stuff. Basically, this house was held together by duct tape. Seriously, held together by duct tape. Now, this is right inside the back door. You can see straight through the wall. Apparently, at one point or another, the hot water pipe came off and it was just open inside the wall, and they never opened the wall to find out what was wrong. And it just kind of leaked into this area and ate up the floor. Walk through here into the kitchen area. Sorry for the echo, guys. As you can see, this entire wall has been taken out. There was a lot of water damage here and a lot of water damage here. And also the lady, gentleman, whoever, lived here before us, had animals, and they didn't take them out often enough, so all of the carpet had to come up. There's obviously quite a few other issues with this building. Quite a few, but let's just close our eyes and pretend for a minute that this place is actually fixed. This will finally be a kitchen that I can use to do my cooking and my videos and everything else like that. As we do the remastered version of the kitchen, as we rebuild this, we're going to do this with me being able to record in this kitchen, canning, doing recipes of all sorts. We're going to do the remodel with this in mind. Also, This area right here would actually be me having an office. It's a rather small office, but having an office would be absolutely amazing. An actual office. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. This is November 7th, 2023, and that is as far as we have gotten this year. Obviously, we're kind of sort of missing our 2023 spring and summer harvest, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to link those videos in the description if you guys are interested. As of right now, this is the start of the new channel. Alright guys, if you've made it to the end, I would appreciate you guys hitting that like and subscribe for more videos in the future where we're going to delve into not just gardening, but prepping, what-ifing, and food preserving. A whole lot more, and I can't wait. You have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, and you stay shiny. Bye!